What do we say, gang? Welcome to another CirdecSongs interview. As always, I ask you to like and subscribe, make some comments, share, because you're going to want to share about this fella right here. I first caught him in 2017, or was it 2018, with a band called Stratospheerius at Progstock. Oktoberfest. I always miss these up. Progstock in Chicago, and they were fantastic. And now the leader of this band has found another small combo to play with, a group called Kansas, and he was fantastic. His name is Joe Deninzon. How are we doing, Joe?
Doing great. How are you, Cedric? Great to be here.
I have no complaints, and I really appreciate you coming on. Where to begin? Because you made the big time, fella. You know what? You're playing with Kansas. You're the violinist for Kansas. How does one even learn about that gig? How did it become available?
Well, through Tom Brislin, because I was kind of, spending a lot of time in the New Jersey progressive rock scene over the last 7 or 8 years, and I started going to Rozfest and Progstock, and sitting in with different bands, and my band became a little more known in that circle. And Tom was deeply entrenched in that world for many, many years. So we got to know each other. He had heard Stratospheerius, and he'd heard me play with different artists like Dave Kersner, and I was very familiar with his work. So when this year, when Kansas needed a kind of a backup guy for David Ragsdale, he thought of me because I was familiar with Kansas music a little bit and played progressive rock. So he recommended me. It started that way. He called me and asked me to send some of my videos to Phil Ehart, the drummer, so they would see what I'm about. They liked the videos of Stratospheerius and thought my style kind of matched with what they were doing. And then it turned out David had some health issues, and it was uncertain if he could do the 50th anniversary tour. So it was on and off for a while. Meanwhile, I was told what the set list would be, and it was originally 25 songs that got cut down to 20. And It was a lot of hard work, and I was really working hard learning those tunes, not knowing if I would get to really play them. But in May, it became evident that he couldn't do the tour, and then they invited me to join the band, and that's how it happened.
Nice, very nice.
Yeah.
Well, I'm telling you, I was at the Chicago show. Shameless plug, folks. It's in Prog Magazine if you want to read my review.
Great review, by the way. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. My biggest disappointment was I was limited to 650 words because I had a lot to say about that show. You guys were spot on, and like I told you before, I haven't thought consciously about Kansas in a long time, but I just became a fan again, instantly. Because
mission accomplished.
Yes. I mean, for a guy that's only been there a few months, you sounded like you'd been there pretty much since the beginning. You knew exactly what was going on. Would you say your methodology for that gig was to learn solos note by note, or did you add a little bit of yourself in there as you went along?
I get that question a lot. So my approach before I even asked Tom about it, first of all, nothing was written out. I was given isolated tracks from the soundboard from live shows that David did.
Uh-huh.
And some of the stuff like Pinnacle, they hadn't played in 40 years. So I was going off studio tracks, kind of guessing what Robbie was doing in some parts. But I wanted to stay as close to the original as possible, meaning like playing with more of a clean sound, learning the solos. So that was my starting point. And then, I consulted with Tom, who's also the musical director, and he would say, well, here you can, let her rip, man, and just be free and do your own thing. And here, just for now, stick to the solos people know because the fans are used to it and the band is used to hearing that. And then you could, once you get a little more comfortable, you can have some wiggle room and expand, So a few of the things I brought into it that they hadn't had before, because, David and Robbie played 5-string violins, and they mostly used a clean tone. I play a 7-string electric. I have a low B flat string. Wow. So I like to crank the distortion pedal and double the guitar parts on some of the heavier songs, like the intro to Throwing Mountains. You need to have that double guitar, that crunchy sound,
Yeah.
Not a clean, kind of proper sounding violin, in my opinion. So certain things I approach differently, but, within the framework of respecting the legacy of the two violinists that came before me. It's 50 years of music. So I don't want to mess with the formula too much, out of respect for the fans and for those guys too. So it's a
Sure.
balancing, and I'm always kind of testing the waters here and there, but well aware of that as the main goal, you know.
Well, there were a couple of tunes
So
where it sounded to me like, for lack of a better phrase, they'd let you off the leash, and you just kind of kind of
it
ripped
feels
into
good
them.
because you know I'm an improviser. I got my own sound. Anybody you get, no matter how, anytime you're replacing a band member, anybody new will bring their personality, their style of playing. That's unavoidable, you know. So it'll sound different, but it could still be, you know, within the tradition of the music and within the vibe, and out of, you know, respecting the people that came before. So, you know,
Makes
hopefully
sense.
I'm doing that well. You know, so far everybody seems to be happy. So I'm
Yeah.
happy.
Well, and I'm happy, and I'm picky. So by chance, are they recording any of these? I'm just curious.
They record everything. They record every. I just found this out. Every show is multi-track recorded. So if they ever choose to make a live record out of this, they'll have plenty of source material. Um, and yeah, I don't know. And then there was talk about a new studio album, but I don't know when that's going to happen because the tour is now extending into next year and could go into the end of next year. So we'll see. But I'm just enjoying the ride and taking it day by day, and you know, whatever they decide to do is fine with me.
It's a beautiful
You
thing.
know.
Let's circle back because my chats are very circular. um, because one just does not idly pick up a seven-string electric violin. Tell us about the genesis of your playing. How did you get started?
On violin or on that instrument?
Ah, well, we can start with violin and work our way
Yeah,
up.
that's a loaded question. Well, I'm the son of two classical musicians. My father just retired after 44 years with the Cleveland Orchestra. My
Oh,
mother's a
wow.
concert pianist, so I grew up in a classical world, and I was an immigrant. So when I came to the States, I kind of didn't really fit in. I didn't speak the language. I was a little kid, and I watched MTV. I listened to the radio, and I really connected with popular music, rock music, and I loved to perform. I was always a ham, you know. And classical music didn't really. I didn't see my role in classical music that way. So even though I studied classical violin, I was always imagining myself as a rock star, pose in front of the mirror, and you know, I eventually, you know, taught myself piano and guitar and bass, and started writing songs. And when I was a teenager, I discovered Jean-Luc Ponty and Stefan Grappelli, and I had good violin technique, and I was playing guitar, rock and blues and jazz on guitar and bass. But I got asked to sit in with local Cleveland artist Michael Stanley. He
I
heard
know
me
that name. Yeah.
because his daughter went to my high school. He's huge. He was huge in Cleveland. He filled stadiums and held attendance records, but not well known outside of Cleveland. You know, he had some minor hits. His stuff was like Midwest Bob Seger rock and roll kind of stuff. You
Yeah.
know.
He made it to St. Louis. He made the airwaves in St. Louis. We have a classic rock station, KSHE, and yeah, I remember
Okay.
hearing the Michael
Um,
Stanley bit.
he had some minor hits in the '80s, but he was a local celebrity. You know, so his daughters went to my high school. He heard me play violin. I was 16. He invited me to sit in with his band, and I'd never played anything outside on the violin outside of classical music. So that was kind of a breakthrough because it just kind of came naturally because I knew how to improvise without realizing it on the instrument. And from there, I was like, wow, man, I can probably do this. I don't know a lot of guys that do this. It's kind of my own niche, you know.
Right.
Since then, I've met a lot of other guys who could do it. But then when I went to college, I found out about electric violins, and when I found out that they made them with six strings, I was like, the more the better, because I'm also a guitar player. In fact, in Kansas, I play guitar as well on a bunch of songs. So
Yep.
you know, I'm a maximalist. I like to get all the bells and whistles and you know go all out. You know, not hold back. So if there's an option to have more strings and more pedals and more, that's what I do. So um, so I figured I could imitate a guitar. I could play through distortion. I loved exploring different sounds. So I got my first electric, which was a six string in 1996 when I was in college. And then when I met Mark Wood, who makes the Flying V seven strings with frets, I'm like, yeah, that's my jam. You know,
Nice.
I'm gonna get like the full range and play power chords and heavy metal riffs on the electric violin.
That's
So since
cool.
then, and as a guy in Stratospheerius, I'm the lead singer of the band, and what I like about Mark's instruments is they have a chest support system, so you're not holding the violin traditionally with your neck and your chin and your shoulder. You have
Right.
your mouth is free. If you're a singer, that's great. The frets are great. You can get fret. I play fretless too, but frets are great if you can't, if the monitor is messed up, you can't hear yourself. It gives you a little more kind of support if you're singing and trying to do a million things at once. So that's my favorite electric violin to play. I know it's not for everybody. It's very far removed from a traditional violin. But up to this point, I was a freelance violinist in New York. So half the work I did was on traditional violins, and half the work was on the electric violin. So I would constantly switch gears, and I love both for very different reasons.
Nice. Very nice.
So
I don't
yeah.
know. I don't know if it's a fair comparison, but I was thinking you sound like the Adrian Belew of violin.
That's a huge compliment. I'm a huge Adrian Belew fan, and we recorded frame by frame on the new live record. We have a version of it, and I gave him a copy of the DVD when I saw him at the Talking Heads show.
Oh, very nice.
So
Very,
hopefully he
very
digs
nice.
it. That we play. His voice is in my range, so singing his songs is really comes naturally.
That's
Um,
cool.
yeah.
That's cool. And we walked
So
right into talking about the new live record. So
sure.
tell us what's going on there.
So we're good friends with Tom Palmieri and Ann Rinaldi. And we played Progstock 4 years in a row. We played the after party in 2018. We played the main stage in 2019. And when you play the main stage, they multi-track your performance and do a multi-camera shoot. So we knew that they would do that, and we could put out a live record. We've been wanting to do a new live record for a long time. And then we started going through that material, and we had it all mixed and edited and mastered. And this took us a few years during COVID. We spent some time doing that. And in 2021, when they went back to having a live festival, John Goodsall fell ill, and they asked us to headline Saturday night. And also, Rachel Flowers played a solo set right before us, and Alex Skolnick was playing with Percy Jones right after us. And
Yes,
Alex used
very
to be
nice.
in the band. We're old friends. So I'm like, man, we should have both of those guys sit in on our set. And then I want to do something with Alex and Rachel. So we spontaneously did Chicoria, Spain, just as a trio. So
Oh,
all these
nice.
cool things, we got all these cool moments that night. And I'm like, wow, now we have double the work to do, because some of these performances are even better of some of these songs than we did in 2019. Plus we had all these guest appearances from Alex and Rachel. So let's make a double album and take highlights from each year. But it ended up taking much longer to edit and put together, but it was worth it because I'm very happy with the result. And I think that the 21 performance was better than 2019,
Okay.
in my personal
That's
opinion. But yeah,
well, that's experience. That's 2 years more
yeah,
experience you got going there.
yeah. We were just also we were in a certain zone. Maybe we were also happy to be back on stage after the pandemic. That helped too. There was a lot of enthusiasm and energy.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I talk to
so
musicians a lot about chemistry, or I ask them a lot about chemistry and how crucial it is. What is it that you look for in a band member in your group?
I think chemistry is so important. I don't want a yes man or yes woman. I want someone who has their opinion. I've learned to let go and not assume I have the best idea. I'll bring in a song and expect the guys to change it and make it better. Jason Gianni, my drummer, we co-write together because he always comes up with a new idea to something that I present, and it's always most of the time it's made the song better, and I never would have thought of it. So guys that want to really collaborate and be involved in the process and call me on my bullshit, and you know, but also who aren't in it to be rock stars or for money, because I can't, there's certain people that are, well, this is my big break. If I don't make it with this band, F you, I'm out. Like
Yeah,
they're about that or whatever imaginary big break they think is going to happen. They got to be in it for the music. That's got to be its own reward, especially in this day and age. And
yeah.
anything that any success that happens, that's wonderful and that's great, and I'm happy to bring you along and for you to be a part of it. But to have that pressure put on yourself that's not based on reality is silly.
Yeah, exactly. The big break is just hard to get anyway. It was hard enough back then, but these days, I can't imagine anybody really getting that kind of break all the time.
I mean, streaming killed recorded music. It's impossible to make money recording music. Touring, you can tour if but we're all in our 40s and we have kids and families and mortgages, So
Right.
the way a band like Kansas did it, or any young band, you got to stuff yourself in a van for years, live like a rat before you get and build up a following. And if I was 18, I could do that, maybe, but I'm not. And I'm 48. So there's other ways to do it. You just got to keep putting music out there, booking shows, social media and all that. But again, it's very hard to make a living um, being a rock star these
Yeah.
days.
I
I
think
mean,
there are about four of them left, and they start with like Taylor Swift maybe and
yeah,
Beyonce.
I mean, especially if you're doing music like prog rock, it's a very niche market. I don't know a lot of young or any young prog musicians that don't have other ways of paying the bills outside of
Yeah.
their music. I got very, very lucky with the Kansas situation. And before that, I was hustling as a violinist and doing, teaching, playing Broadway shows, weddings, whatever, which is all fine, man. I enjoy it. It's great. I love
Sure.
being a
Sure.
musician. But my dream was always to make a living playing original music, and that's rarefied air. Very few people are able to do that. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Um,
And playing the violin makes it, I would imagine, a little more difficult. I think of Eddie Jobson, but after that, I draw a blank on how many prog rock violinists were prominent during that era.
yeah, there was a golden age of prog violin in the 70s and 80s. With David Byrd with King Crimson,
Uh-huh.
um, and Jerry Goodman, Jean-Luc Ponty, and of course Robbie Steingart. Um,
Yeah.
but there was, and Frank Zappa used a lot of violin in his music, Sugarcane Harris and Jean-Luc. Um, but yeah, it was less common in the 80s, and um, but I was inspired by that whole era, so I try to really celebrate that in my original music and bring elements of that back. And also as a teacher, like there's a whole new generation of young electric players that can shred and do and blow your
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah.
In the last 20 years, it's really changed. So there's a lot of, and that leads to a lot of cool new music. I mean, ultimately, it's not just the instrument. You got to be writing good music that people want to hear. It doesn't matter what the medium is.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
I think of two, and unfortunately, I don't remember the name of one of them. Chris Baum in Bent Knee is a great player,
yeah,
and
that's
and
right.
there's a guy in Thank You Scientist. I'm so sorry, I don't remember his name, but
Ben
he's a
Karas,
thank
great
you.
friend of mine,
Yeah,
great
yeah,
friend of
he is
mine.
a
And yeah,
great player. He's just a terrific player. You keep bringing up Jean-Luc Ponty,
yeah.
which makes me so happy because that's how my dad got me into fusion.
But,
He played me
but
Cosmic Messenger.
But by the way, I got to interrupt you. I got to apologize to any Crimson fans. It's David Cross. I said the
Yes.
wrong last name. Yeah.
David Cross. David Cross. I'm sure somebody
Yes.
will yell at us and correct it. No,
Yeah.
it's
I don't
David
want to get
Cross.
yelled at. Okay.
Please don't yell at us, folks. We know what we're
Yeah.
doing, but
Okay.
but
I just
but no, we're good. Not a
so
problem. But Ponty just Cosmic Messenger just hooked me. You know how it is when you're a kid. You try to ignore what your parents are playing sometimes, and I walked through the living room. I talk about this in my book, another shameless plug. And I heard this sound, and I couldn't figure out what the sound was. And I asked my dad
mhm.
what it was. What's an electric violin? I'm like, oh, okay. And he hands me the cover or the sleeve for Cosmic Messenger. And I go from trying to walk past him and get outside to sitting next to him on the couch and say,
Wow.
what is happening right now? And any particular record of his that sticks out in your mind that way? I'm just curious.
Um, Cosmic Messenger is definitely like his pivotal Imaginary Voyage.
Yes,
Everyone knows that
yes,
record.
right before
Um,
that one. Yep.
and actually, for me, King Kong, the collaboration he did with Zappa,
Yes, that's very
and
good.
and the work he did with Mahavishnu, Visions of the Emerald Beyond, is probably my favorite Mahavishnu record.
Okay.
That he was just at his peak, just killing it, and such fresh ideas and great sounds, and you know. But for me, that moment of epiphany you talk about, when I
Hmm.
heard, I took a jazz history class in Indiana University. David Baker, who looked at jazz as being this giant umbrella, not just swing and not just this or that, he played us Mahavishnu Orchestra when we were studying what came in the 70s. He was into
Yes.
fusion. And when he played Celestial Terrestrial Commuters from Birds of Fire, and when I heard Jerry Goodman's solo on that, that was it for me. That was like
Yeah.
the moment I saw my whole life ahead of me. I'm like, that's the sound. That's what I want to do. Because I had
Yeah.
never heard anyone play violin like that. It wasn't prim and proper and perfect intonation, perfect vibrato. I mean, his intonation was good, but it had grit, it had bluesiness, it had that rock and roll sensibility that I hadn't heard any violin player, approach it that way. We're
Yeah.
also obsessed with being perfect. Not that Jerry wasn't perfect, but just different,
Yeah.
and
That raw aggression, that passion he was bringing to it.
that really spoke to me. So that I think I took a lot from that approach, from his approach, and from playing guitar many years. I was influenced by, Jimmy Page and Steve Vai and Jimi Hendrix, of course, and Eddie Van Halen. But I took that to the violin,
Nice, and it all
Yeah.
comes through. How much of that do you think sneaks into Stratospheerius records? I mean, are you conscious of it, or are you more like the sum of your influences?
Both. I play how I play. It's the sum of my influences, and it informs what I do with Stratospheerius. I like, a lot of people, it's still a novelty to hear a violin through a distortion and wah pedal.
Yeah.
Some people get in like, that's guitar territory. Well, yes and no, because violin sounds different,
Agreed.
with those sounds. And I like experimenting, with harmonists and whammy pedals and different flangers and filters, and seeing what I think, not just note wise and arrangement wise. I think sonic texture when I create my parts. What would work better for this chorus versus this verse? That's always fun for me to experiment with, and I think that's informed from playing a lot of guitar and and hanging out with keyboard players too who think that way, not just about
Yeah.
notes. And I want more string players to. There's a certain pushback I get sometimes, that from bands I play with. They believe a violin has to fill this role and sound a certain way, and that's the way it's kind of frozen in their mind. And I always try to open people's minds to possibilities, sonic possibilities of the electric violin
Yeah. I
that they
mean,
might not be aware of.
that's what music is about, just the sonic possibility. I can't imagine just being stilted and staying in one place and saying this is all I'm about. Doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I think it's funny because the electric violins has existed for 100 years, but people still treat it like a new thing. you know, Jean-Luc will tell you that. Like, people
Oh
still
yeah, yeah,
talk to me like, I've been doing this for 50 years, and they still treat it like it's brand new. It's something they've never heard before. It's
yeah.
interesting.
That was
Uh,
two shows I felt like I was privileged to attend when Jean-Luc toured his Atlantic years. I want to say that was in 2018, and the year before that I got to see McLaughlin playing with Jimmy Herring, and they created the new
wow.
Mahavishnu Orchestra. I go to a lot of shows and I say, okay, this was cool. I'm glad I was here, but the Mahavishnu type show, it felt like a privilege to be watching them on stage. Just amazing stuff.
I regret I was born too late. I never got to see him live. I did get to see
Yeah,
Jerry
exactly.
with
Same
Dixie.
thing.
I saw Jerry with Dixie Dregs killing it, and he was great. One of my top 5 favorite violinists of all time, Jerry Goodman, I would say.
Nice.
Um, and also, as a musician, I don't get to go to as many concerts as you. I miss a lot of shows that I would love to see as a fan, because
Well, you're kind of busy. Yeah.
that's the price you pay
Yeah.
because you're working.
I'd say you're
Yeah,
kind of occupied. Did you see the show? No, I had a gig
yeah.
that night.
I just missed Peter Gabriel. I was so bummed. That was definite priority for me.
Oh
But what are
yeah.
you gonna do?
Yeah. Well, then
So
I won't tell you that I'm going to a show next week. Then
jealous.
and
Hey,
I'm breaking my big venue rule for that show. I don't like large venues, and he's playing the United Center, and I'm like, you know what? When am I going to get another chance?
for certain artists, you have to. It's
Yeah,
just. For me, as a musician, I love playing theaters, like the size theaters that Kansas plays. Those are my favorite venues because
yeah,
they're big enough, but they're intimate enough. You see people in the audience. You feel like you're close to the audience, but you get this massive, overwhelming thing from people, from the crowd.
yeah.
But they're also not cookie cutter. Like, a lot of arenas are they look the same. All these theaters have their own history, their own personality, and a lot of them are works of art that were built 100 years ago. Which is really cool. They're all different.
And the Chicago
So
Theater was definitely one of them because
that was a highlight. That place
yeah,
was beautiful, just historic, and it was just walking around. It's like being in a museum.
yes, yes. Well, let's talk about connection for a moment because that's why I love small venues. I like to be able to make
Yeah.
eye contact with the musicians. I mean, how much are you aware of the audience? I mean, are you trying to play directly towards somebody, or you're just hoping they come to you?
I look people in the eye. I find certain people, and especially if it's somebody I know personally, that's always fun
Yeah,
to know that you see them. Um, but I mean, I don't do it the whole time, but it's fun to kind of make eye contact and play to individual people throughout the night. You feel that they really appreciate it. And other times I play to the back of the hall. If I'm playing a big solo, like on the wall, I'll imagine that is carrying to the end of the earth and play to the people in the balcony, you know. So
nice.
I kind of go back and forth between both of those mentality, you know, both of those mental approaches.
Fair enough. So,
So
would you say the theater is your ideal size room, or do you want something of a different size?
no, I love playing theater, like 1,500 to 3,000 capacity theaters, like we've been playing. Those are my favorite kinds of rooms. I like the clubs can be great, you know, and I've played arenas too, and it's all amazing. But I just like the audience size and the architecture, you know, and the history
Right.
of some of the theaters too.
That's got to be
So
trippy though. Playing, I'm thinking about playing arenas. That's a lot of people to play in front of. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I haven't. I've only played in arenas as a member of an orchestra or group, so I didn't have to go out there and play to the crowd and you know do the rock star walking around thing.
right?
I
Doing,
respect people that can carry a space like that. That's a quite a skill to have, you know.
yeah, doing the Mick
Yeah.
Jagger of violin. That would be a lot of work.
Yeah,
What
but
are you bringing us for Progstock? For Progstock. Amazing how often I mess that up.
it's a
But
tongue twister.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I'm playing this year with Dave Kersner, my buddy Dave, who I've worked with his band for a bunch of years now. I'm on 3 records of his. Great songwriter, great musician, and he always manages to surround himself with legendary players. So his new album, I just did some tracks for him, and we're playing at the pre-show on Thursday night and the main stage on Saturday night, 5th and the 7th.
nice.
That's with Fernando Perdomo, Durga McBroom, Matt Dorsey. Um, I forget who the drummer is. And I think Randy McStein is sitting in.
Yeah,
So it's a good group.
another massive
And
talent.
and through him, I got to play at Cruise to the Edge, you know, with some great players.
Very cool.
Yeah,
I have not experienced Cruise to the Edge yet, but it just strikes me as, how would I put this nicely? The prog nerd's dream to just be able to
it's
go from place
Prague
to place.
paradise. It is
Yeah,
Prague paradise. Yeah, you're hanging out and having breakfast, and you see like there's Mike Portnoy, there's Steve Hackett, there's you know there's Yes sitting at the next table, and they're all just walking around. You're in the elevator with Adrian Belew. You're doing my friend did a morning like drawing painting class, and it was with Michael Sadler and Alan Parsons. We're in that class with him. You know, so it's kind of like summer camp with with your record collection. You know.
that's a good one. Summer camp with your record collection.
so
I'm
so
stealing that.
you could have it, but I was just exhausting myself trying to catch every show. There's 4 stages and there's always performances going on, and if that's your scene, you're going to be going nuts just trying to catch everything. And a lot of spontaneous jams happen and people sitting in that usually don't get to sit in with each other and all that stuff. So
That's
can't
got to be a
recommend it
lot of
enough.
fun.
You would love it. You would love it.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
I will probably do it. Probably maybe next year or the year after, because it's Oktoberfest was me just running between 2 stages back
Right.
and forth, and it
This
was
is more, but
this
the
this is
good,
a bit more intense.
yeah, but the good news, the thing is, if you miss somebody's set, every band does 2 sets during the week, so you could catch their next one. They might play
Okay,
the pool stage on Monday and then the main stage on Friday or something. So you got to just watch the schedule. You know,
I got you.
the other thing for me, the last night they have an artist only after party, most intimidating karaoke session of all time. You got the lead
That's
singers of all your favorite bands, and then should I sign up or and make a fool of myself? I don't know.
yeah, yeah.
You know?
I kind of wanted to play that guy's song. I wonder if he's going to
Yeah,
mind.
that would be pretty funny. Yeah.
Well,
So
put together your dream band. Obviously, the band you have now is fantastic, but in Fantasyland, who would you love to
oh
play
god,
with?
I don't want to play. I don't want to present it that way because I have my dream band now.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
I'm working with the best musicians I can, and we got the best engineer mixing our album, and just a great team in place. But maybe rephrase it like people I've always wanted to collaborate with. Maybe.
Fair enough. I can live with that.
Yeah, I always wanted to work with Neil Morse. I have deep respect for him. Or play with Mike Portnoy or with. Well, I've played with Marco Miniman. I think he's a great drummer.
Oh yeah.
I always would love to have a album produced by Rick Rubin. That would be amazing.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I could never afford him, but that's my fantasy producer because his whole Zen approach and his he's kind of the musician whisperer. He's able to say the right things to get the best performance out of you. And I need someone to strip down my mixes because I record too many tracks sometimes.
Right.
So yeah, I'd have to really think about that. Billy Cobham, let's see, from bass players, Lee Sklar, that's one person that comes to mind.
That's a good
Oteil
one.
Burbridge, guys like that. Can I get back to you?
Sure, we can do that. I'm sitting here thinking I would love to hear you interact with somebody like Tony Levin and see
of course,
see where that would go.
Well, of course. Well, we're actually opening for the Levin Brothers at Sellersville Theater December 15th.
Ah, cool.
Second time we're doing that. So love Tony Levin. Oh my God. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There you go. Adrian Belew. I would love to play with Adrian Belew. He's a very creative spirit, and brilliant mind, musical mind.
You could almost do dueling violins because he gets into that synth and he just makes sounds. When Crimson played when they played Lark's Tongues and Aspic as the double trio, and he pulled David Cross's sound out of his guitar synth. That was really cool to hear.
So I had a funny moment on the first Cruise to the Edge because they have the late night jams, the late night live thing that Rob Rutz runs, and people sign up to play a song that they want to play. It's mostly, hobbyist musicians who are good players, but maybe aren't full-time musicians. And it's your chance to play a Spock's Beard song with a member of Spock's Beard, for example, or a Kansas song with a member of Kansas, and they're on the cruise. So when I kind of naively put out that I was available, I got flooded with requests. So I was more nervous learning songs for the after jam than the main gig I was hired to play on the cruise, So one of the songs was Lark's Tongue and Aspic. Someone wanted to play that. So I, for some reason, got mixed up and I transcribed a David Cross's violin solo from part 1, this 11-minute violin cadenza, and just took it really seriously. And I was really intense about it. And I get there and on the schedule, it says part 2.
Oh no.
I learned the wrong one. And I heard part 2, but I didn't know it. It's one thing to listen to the song, but then the other thing to do a deep dive and learn it, So I'm like, shit, I got to go on stage in 5 minutes with Rachel Flowers on guitar and all these guys. And I just kind of listened to it a few times on my phone. I'm like, well, I'm just going to have to fake it. Here goes nothing. So I get up on stage. First row, there's Adrian Belew with Julie Slick sitting there.
No problem. No pressure at all.
So I just laughed. So I kind of flubbed it, And afterwards, Rachel was like, "That was interesting, Joe. You weren't playing the melody right, but it was interesting." She was just trying to be polite. And then I told Adrian about it later at the after party. He laughed. He thought it was hilarious. The whole situation, because he's got a good sense of humor,
Oh, he does. He does. Just winging it up there. And I hear jazz musicians say it's not a wrong note until you acknowledge that it's a wrong note.
Yeah. Most great jazz musicians are just covering up mistakes in a very slick way. It's a sleight of hand or a sleight of ear,
So, what's the story about Herbie Hancock just playing the complete wrong chord when he was playing with Miles in that great quintet? And Miles ran a scale over that wrong chord, so it just made sense.
Yeah, the whole concept of mistakes. I studied jazz in college. The whole concept of mistakes is very flexible, and you can turn a mistake into a beautiful opportunity. Which I love about that music.
Nice.
So
how many happy accidents would you say you've had as a composer?
As a composer or as an improviser?
Yeah. A little of both.
As an improviser, I would. Yeah, I remember I did a song. I accidentally hit a loop from a previous song that was in a different key and different time signature by accident, and then I just kept hitting it to make it sound like I'm meant to do it, you know? Oh yeah, there's so many stories like that, but I'm at the point where nothing phases me. I've just been through it all, and I just kind of smile through the thing and pick up the pieces and keep going, you know?
Makes
And
sense.
when I'm writing, if I stumble on something great, it's not really a mistake. If I'm just improvising and riffing on something and looking for ideas, I try not to get out of my own way and just let everything come out and then listen to it the next day. Because the way you perceive music changes from day to day. Something you might think is horrible, you might love the next day, and vice
Right,
versa.
right.
So you just got to trust the process and not second guess everything you do. That's hard for some people, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Um,
you don't strike me as one of those people though that says that this has to be the precise note at this particular moment. It's a little more flexible.
yeah, yeah. Or you know what I've learned is I might think it's the right note, and then my band hears it differently than I do, and I come around to their way of hearing it.
That's good. That's good.
So
Well, I know you've got stuff to do, and I
um,
am looking forward to seeing you at Progstock. That's April. That's October 6th through the 9th, for those of you who are
um,
interested in getting there. Rutherford, New Jersey, if I remember correctly.
that's correct. But I'd like to plug the two Stratospheerius shows that are coming up for
Let's do
your
that.
listeners. So Stratospheerius is still playing live whenever Kansas is off tour, and we're back on the stage. We haven't played since May. We're playing a show on September 28th at Debonair Music Hall in Teaneck, New Jersey,
Hmm.
and on September 30th at Kennett Flash in Kennett Square, Pennsylvania, near Philly.
Okay.
And it's a double bill with a band called We Came From Space. And that band's out of Pittsburgh, and they have Bill Hubauer on keys, who also
Ah,
plays with us. And Bill is best known for his work with Neil Morse Band. So
okay.
it's a great night of progressive rock, and we're looking forward to getting on stage again and
I almost feel
performing.
like I need to catch a flight to check that out.
You do.
And,
We can't tour as much as we used to, so we're doing more regional stuff.
makes sense. Makes
Yeah.
sense. And where do we find you? Where's everybody find your music traditionally? What's your best spot?
For the band, it's stratosband.com, STRATOS band.com. And for all my projects, Stratos and otherwise, is joedviolin.com. That's D like dog, joedviolin.com. And
Makes
through
sense.
both those websites, you can link to Bandcamp, all the social media stuff. Those are like the central hubs for all of that, YouTube and whatnot.
Very cool. Very cool. Check
Yeah.
them out, kids, because this is a great band you don't want to miss. Joe, I really appreciate your time. I can't wait to see you in Jersey. And that's not
Likewise,
something
a
I say
few
every
weeks,
day.
a few short weeks. We'll
It will
have.
be a good time. So good luck. Best of luck
Thank
with
you.
everything you're doing. And if you haven't heard Joe with Kansas people, seriously, just go check him out. He sounds like he's been there since the 70s.
Oh, thank you. Go on kansasband.com. All the tour dates. There's still dates being added. So hopefully we'll come to your
Awesome.
area. Yeah.
Awesome. We will
So
talk to you soon.
thanks so much, Cedric. Thanks for is it Cedric or Cerdic for your
Well, it's Cedric. Cedric is my name. Serdek is we'll call it a moniker because Serdek is Cedric backward. So
Oh right, that's right.
because because I'm
Duh.
because I'm clever that way.
That's
Everybody does the same thing. Oh my God, yeah, that's what that's what it is.
how did I not
So
think about that? So
so for all of those who were wondering where I got that name from, that's
it all
that's
makes sense now.
that's what I'm
So
doing.
thanks for having me, and really appreciate everything you do for music, all your writing and reviewing and
Oh, I really appreciate that.
everything, man.
It's this is called my passion. I love
I
talking
can
to
feel it.
musicians. I love talking to musicians who play stuff that's outside of the top 40 because you guys deserve the most attention. Absolutely.
Oh, thank you.
No trouble. Take care, my man. We'll
All
talk to
right,
you
rock
soon.
on, brother. Take care. All the best.